Have you ever felt like you're constantly chasing, yet never arriving? You work harder, push more, want things to move faster, believing peace lies on the other side of achievement. But what if true peace isn't something you chase, but something you stop resisting? What if the very things you try to control are exactly what are stealing your peace? We grip tighter, cling to expectations, and exhaust ourselves fighting reality, only to feel more lost, more anxious, more disconnected. What if letting go doesn't mean giving up, but finally tuning in? Why do some people remain calm in chaos while others crumble at the slightest wave? It's not luck, and it's not ignorance. It's inner architecture, a mindset shaped not by force, but by understanding, stillness, and alignment with life's nature. And that's where Stoicism comes in, not as a cold philosophy, but as a warm guide to reclaiming your inner balance. In this video, we're not talking about escaping life, but living it differently. Smarter, softer, stronger. These 12 Stoic lessons are not just thoughts to admire, they're practices to embody. From mastering your response to releasing attachment, from embracing silence to living fully in the present, this is a blueprint for inner peace that actually works in the real world. Let's dive into each of these timeless lessons, one by one, and rediscover what it truly means to stop forcing and start flowing with life. 1. Live fully in the present. In a world obsessed with deadlines, goals, and what comes next, we often overlook the only thing that truly belongs to us, the present moment. Stoicism reminds us that life isn't waiting for us somewhere far in the future. Nor is it something we lost in the past. Life is here. It's now. It's the warmth of the morning sun on your skin, the sound of a loved one's laughter, the simple breath you're taking right now. Living fully in the present isn't just a poetic idea, it's a radical act of reclaiming your peace. Most of us move through life on autopilot, constantly racing from one task to another, chasing outcomes, dwelling on mistakes, or fearing what's to come. And in the process, we forget to live, we forget to notice, we forget to feel. But the Stoics knew that the key to inner peace doesn't lie in controlling everything. It lies in noticing everything. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, once said, "Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you, while you live, while it is in your power. Be good." This isn't a message of fear. It's a wake-up call. Every breath is a chance to be present. Every moment, a reminder that this right now, is where your power lies. Imagine sitting down to a meal. How often do you eat while scrolling through your phone, barely tasting the food, your mind lost in unfinished emails, past conversations, or tomorrow's to-do list? Now imagine the same meal, but fully present. You savor each bite. You notice the texture, the aroma, the sensation of nourishment. That moment becomes a ritual, not a routine. This is not about turning your life into a constant meditation. It's about awakening. It's about choosing to be alive to your experience rather than letting it pass you by unnoticed. It's about realizing that the most powerful, joyful, and peaceful moments in life are usually the smallest ones, the ones that vanish if you're not paying attention. Living in the present also means giving up the illusion that we can fix the past or perfectly predict the future. How many hours, how many days, have we wasted ruminating over what we should have said, what we should have done, or what might go wrong? Stoicism teaches us that the past is gone, it belongs to memory. The future? It belongs to fate. But the present moment? That is yours. It is your canvas, your decision, your response. And the quality of your life depends not on how many things you achieve in the future, but on the quality of your thoughts and awareness in the now. Mindfulness, a concept closely aligned with Stoic practice, is simply the act of noticing, without judgment, what is happening right here, right now. Whether you're walking, working, talking, or even resting, you can bring your awareness back to the present. You can remind yourself, this moment is my life. The Stoics would have us practice this repeatedly, not as a one-time revelation, but as a daily devotion. Epictetus advised, ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? That question cuts through the noise. It brings you back to now. But let's be honest, this is not easy. Distractions are everywhere. Your phone pings. Your thoughts wander. You feel pulled in 100 directions. That's normal. That's human. And that's exactly why this practice matters. Because the more you return to the present, the stronger your ability to stay grounded becomes. It's like training a muscle, one breath, one moment at a time. And when you live this way, truly in the present, you begin to notice changes. Anxiety lessens because you're not projecting into a future that doesn't yet exist. Regret softens because you're not clinging to a past you cannot change. You begin to feel lighter, more peaceful, more alive. Even amidst chaos, you find that inner stillness, not because life becomes easier, but because you've stopped trying to escape it. There's something quietly revolutionary about fully inhabiting your life. When you're present, you listen more deeply, you love more openly, you respond more wisely, you become more of yourself, more connected, more compassionate, more complete. And the beauty of this truth is that it's available to you at every moment. You don't need permission. You don't need to change your entire life. You just need to arrive, to show up, fully, to the only moment that's real. So pause, breathe, look around. Right here, right now, is the only moment you are guaranteed. And in that moment, you have a choice. You can rush past it, numbed by distraction and worry, or you can live it, feel it, own it, because when you truly live in the present, you're not just existing, you're awakening, and that, the Stoics would say, is the beginning of wisdom. 2. Understand the impermanence of life. Everything you love, everything you own, everything you are, will one day change. This is not a dark thought. It's not meant to scare you or pull you into despair. It's a truth that, once accepted, can become the foundation of real peace, deep purpose, and unshakable strength. The Stoics didn't fear impermanence, they embraced it. They saw in it the rhythm of nature, the pulse of time, the reminder that nothing lasts forever. And therefore, everything matters more. Think about it. Your relationships, your successes, your health, even your breath right now, they are all passing. Not because they're unworthy, but because life itself is built on motion, on change, on transition. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." That line doesn't whisper. It shakes your soul awake. It tells you, don't wait to appreciate. Don't delay your kindness. Don't assume you have forever. Because you don't. And that's where the gift lies. In knowing that everything is temporary, we begin to cherish it more deeply. A hug lasts seconds, but when you know you may never feel it again, it holds the weight of eternity. A conversation, a walk, a smile. These ordinary moments become sacred when you realize they're fragile. Stoicism urges us not to look away from this truth, but to lean into it, to see the impermanence of all things not as loss, but as perspective. Too often, we waste time trying to control the uncontrollable. We seek permanence in people, in achievements, in possessions, hoping they'll anchor us. But reality keeps moving, shifting, taking away what we thought we could keep. And every time something changes or disappears, we feel betrayed by life. But life isn't betraying us. It's just being what it's always been, fleeting. The problem isn't impermanence. The problem is forgetting that impermanence is the rule, not the exception. Look at nature. Seasons change, leaves fall, rivers shift, the sun rises and sets. Everything follows a cycle, and so do we. Yet we resist. We mourn change, fight it, deny it, until it breaks us. But Stoicism offers another path, a wiser one. It teaches us to hold things lightly, to love without clinging, to strive without obsessing, to live without fearing the end of things. Not because we don't care, but because we care so much that we refuse to waste a second. Imagine a relationship, someone you deeply love. What if, instead of fearing the day you'll lose them, you used that awareness to love them more fully now? What if every goodbye was treated like it could be the last, not out of paranoia, but out of reverence? This is what Epictetus meant when he said, "When you kiss your child good night, say to yourself, he may not live to morning." At first, that sounds harsh, but it's not about gloom. It's about presence. It's about refusing to take anything for granted. It's about living with your heart fully open, knowing that every moment matters. And it's not just people. It's everything. Your youth, your success, your strength, your status. All of it will shift. The Stoics weren't surprised by change, they expected it. They trained their minds to be ready. They saw every change as a reminder. You are not in control of the world, only your response to it. You are not entitled to forever, only to now. That shift in thinking is powerful. It releases you from the grip of attachment and fear. It allows you to walk through life with open hands, not clenched fists. So when something ends, a job, a season, a friendship, you don't crumble. You bow. You thank it for what it was. And you move forward, not cold, not indifferent, but free. Free to keep living, loving, giving, without being broken by the tides of change. This understanding also helps us deal with fear, especially the fear of death. The Stoics didn't see death as something to be avoided or dreaded. They saw it as part of the deal, part of the beautiful, painful, breathtaking experience of being human. Seneca said, "We are born to die, not to scare us, but to wake us up, to remind us that every day is a chance to live with courage and clarity." When you understand that time is finite, you stop wasting it on trivial things. You stop holding grudges. You stop chasing illusions. You start living deliberately. And maybe most importantly, you start letting go. Letting go of the need for control. Letting go of the past. Letting go of the belief that happiness lies in having everything stay the same. Because it doesn't. Happiness, real happiness, comes from knowing that nothing lasts, and choosing to love it anyway. Choosing to show up fully, while it's still here. Understanding impermanence also helps us detach from materialism. In a world that worships things, more money, more stuff, more recognition, It's easy to forget that none of it is forever. You can spend your life accumulating and still lose it all. Epictetus warned, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. That's not minimalism, it's wisdom. It's realizing that inner peace doesn't come from what you own, but from who you are when everything else fades. So when life shifts, and it will, you won't be caught off guard. You'll be anchored in something stronger than circumstances. You'll know that storms pass, grief softens, joy evolves, and time keeps moving. And instead of resisting, you'll ride the wave. You'll learn to say, this too is part of it. This too will pass, and I will be okay. In the end, to understand the impermanence of life is to live with eyes wide open. To see beauty even in endings. To find grace even in loss. And to stop waiting for someday. Because someday is never promised. Only this moment is. And if you can learn to cherish it, not because it will last, but because it won't, you'll discover a kind of freedom no one can take from you. That's the Stoic way, grounded in truth, guided by reason, and filled with presence. Impermanence is not the enemy. It's the mirror that shows you what truly matters. And once you understand that, you'll never live the same way again. 3. The power of acceptance. There's a quiet strength that lives in the person who accepts life as it is, not as they wish it to be. It's not about weakness, nor is it about giving up. True acceptance, in the eyes of the Stoics, is one of the greatest forms of wisdom. It's the ability to say, this is happening, this is real, now how do I respond? In a world that urges us to fight everything, fix everything, force everything, acceptance becomes a powerful act of rebellion. It's not passivity, it's clarity, and from that clarity comes peace. We spend so much of our energy resisting what's already in motion. We get angry at traffic, frustrated by other people's decisions, devastated when life doesn't go according to plan. But none of that changes the reality, it only drains us. What Stoicism teaches is not to become numb or indifferent, but to be deeply present with what is, without letting it control our inner state. Epictetus said it best, make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens. This is the root of acceptance, not giving up, but focusing wisely. Think about how often we get upset over things completely beyond our control, the weather, someone's opinion, a delayed flight, a job we didn't get, a past we can't rewrite. Every moment we spend fighting those realities is a moment we lose our calm, our perspective, and our strength. Stoic acceptance doesn't mean liking everything that happens. It means acknowledging reality without letting it poison your mind. It means creating space between stimulus and response, and in that space, reclaiming your freedom. Let's be honest, life doesn't care about our plans. It unfolds with its own rhythm, its own logic, its own surprises. The sooner we accept this, the more we can flow with life instead of fighting against it. That's not resignation, that's intelligence. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome and student of life, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is where true confidence begins, not in controlling outcomes, but in mastering your inner world. Imagine you're in a difficult conversation. The other person is agitated, maybe even unfair. Your natural reaction might be to defend yourself, to raise your voice, to control the situation. But what happens if you step back and accept the moment as it is? not to let them win, but to free yourself from the emotional grip. You stay calm, you speak with intention, you control what's yours, your thoughts, your tone, your reaction. That is acceptance in action. And it's far more powerful than reacting out of impulse. We often confuse acceptance with apathy. But Stoicism draws a sharp line. Apathy says, I don't care. Acceptance says, I care enough not to let this ruin me. There's a world of difference. Acceptance requires more emotional strength, not less. It means choosing peace when chaos knocks at your door. It means responding wisely rather than reacting wildly. It means being grounded enough to recognize, this is outside of me, and I won't let it control my mind. Think about failure. One of the hardest things to accept. You put your heart into something, and it falls apart. You try your best, and it's not enough. In that moment, resistance feels natural, but resistance brings suffering. Acceptance brings growth. You say, yes, I failed, but what can I learn? How can I grow? The Stoics believed every experience, especially the painful ones, could become fuel for wisdom. Seneca said, a gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. Accepting failure doesn't make you weaker. It makes you wiser. It's the same with people. We want them to be different. We expect them to behave the way we believe they should. And when they don't, we feel angry or disappointed. But people are who they are. Their actions reflect their own beliefs, their own wounds, their own journey, not your expectations. Acceptance of others doesn't mean tolerating abuse or disrespect. It means letting go of the illusion that we can or should control them. You protect your peace not by changing others, but by choosing how you engage, how you set boundaries, and how you walk away if needed. Acceptance also applies to ourselves. We carry regret, shame, and guilt for things we can no longer change. We wish we had spoken differently, loved better, acted sooner, but we forget. The past is no longer ours. The only way to transform it is to learn from it, then release it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself often, the present is all we have. The rest is beyond us. And in that present, we get to choose what kind of person we want to be. Acceptance doesn't mean we stop evolving. It means we stop punishing ourselves for what's already done. Even pain, emotional or physical, can become easier to bear when we accept it. Not because it vanishes, but because we stop tightening around it. When you say, this is what I'm feeling, I don't need to fight it. I can breathe through it. Something opens. The tension softens. The mind becomes clearer. Resistance adds layers to the pain. Acceptance removes them. And from that space, healing can begin. The power of acceptance lies in its ability to return us to ourselves. It reminds us that while the world spins wildly, we still have agency over our choices, our mindset, our direction. It gives us clarity in confusion, composure in chaos, and courage in the face of uncertainty. It's not about surrendering to fate, but aligning with truth. It's seeing the world not through the lens of how it should be, but how it is, and choosing to act wisely within that truth. So when life throws you into the unknown, don't panic. Pause, observe, accept. Ask yourself, what is within my control? What is not? And where do I want to place my energy? That choice, right there, is the birthplace of peace. That is where real strength begins. The Stoics weren't trying to escape life. They were trying to meet it, fully, fearlessly. and honestly. And in that meeting, they found a freedom that no chaos could shake. The power of acceptance is not about letting life walk over you. It's about standing tall, anchored in truth, unshaken by storms, because you are no longer resisting life. You are rising within it. 4. Learn to let go. There's a quiet liberation that happens when you finally stop holding on to what didn't go your way, to what someone said, to the version of the story you keep replaying in your head. We all carry things far longer than we should: anger, guilt, shame, regret, expectations, the need to be understood, or the hope that someone will become who we imagined. And yet, the longer we cling, the heavier we become. Letting go is not weakness. Letting go is power. It's the kind of strength that doesn't make noise but sets you free in silence. Stoicism teaches us that suffering doesn't come from what happens to us, but from how we interpret and attach to those events. Epictetus said, "It's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them." That's the truth most of us struggle to accept. It's not the breakup that still haunts you. It's the story you keep telling yourself about it. It's not the failure that keeps you stuck. It's your belief that it defined you. The past is over. It's done. It cannot be changed, but it can be released. And in that release lies your rebirth. We hold onto things because we believe they give us identity. We think that by replaying pain, we are honoring it, but pain is not meant to be a monument. It's meant to be a teacher. When you hold onto something too tightly, it owns you. It shapes your choices. It distorts your peace. Letting go doesn't erase what happened. It simply removes its power over your present. You're not erasing history. You're choosing not to relive it every day. You're not pretending it didn't matter. You're refusing to let it steal your joy. Sometimes, it's not even the past we cling to, but the vision we had of how things were supposed to turn out. The person we expected to stay. The dream we thought would bloom. The timing we planned so carefully. But life doesn't follow our blueprint. It unfolds on its own terms. When we can't let go of how we thought things should be, we blind ourselves to the beauty of what actually is. The Stoics remind us, expectation is a form of emotional attachment. And attachment, when misused, is a trap. Marcus Aurelius taught, receive without pride, let go without attachment. To live fully is to love freely, to strive without clinging, and to release without regret. Think about the burden of carrying someone else's opinion. You don't even remember when it started, but somewhere along the way, you began shaping your choices based on how others would see you. Their validation became your mirror. Their praise, your oxygen, and their silence, a reason to shrink. But here's the truth. What others think of you is none of your business. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to live truthfully. And you cannot do that while imprisoned by the weight of others' expectations. Letting go means choosing peace over pride. It means realizing that proving a point isn't always worth the price of your serenity. It means walking away, not because you're bitter, but because you're wise enough to protect your energy. People will misunderstand you. Some will judge you. Some will leave. That's life. But the most important thing is that you don't abandon yourself in the process of holding on to people who were never meant to stay. Release them, wish them well, and come back home to yourself. Freedom isn't something granted to you. It's something you claim when you stop attaching your worth to anything outside of your control. You are not your mistakes. You are not your past. You are not the roles others assign you. You are the awareness that notices, the presence that heals, the soul that rises. Letting go is the path back to that truth. When you let go, you don't lose control, you gain clarity. You don't become empty, you become open. Open to what life is offering you now, not what you lost. Even your own thoughts can become chains. That inner voice that keeps echoing doubts and criticisms. The one that repeats old wounds like a broken record. You don't have to believe it. You can acknowledge its presence and let it pass. Like clouds in the sky. Your thoughts are not permanent. They are not facts. They are passing mental weather. And you are the sky. Wide, still, unbothered. Imagine how different your life would feel if you gave yourself permission to let go of everything weighing you down. Imagine starting fresh. Not by changing the world around you, but by releasing your grip on it. Imagine trusting that you can handle anything. Not because you've locked everything into place, but because you've stopped trying to. Letting go is not the end of effort. It's the end of resistance. It's moving with life, not against it. It's choosing to rise, even if it means rising alone. Seneca once said, "He who is brave is free." And there is no braver act than choosing to free yourself from what no longer serves you. Your past is not a prison. Your identity is not fixed. Your future is not doomed because something didn't work out. You are always one breath away from letting go. And in that breath, everything can begin again. This is the essence of Stoic freedom, not control, but release, not possession, but presence, not gripping tightly, but living lightly. You don't have to hold on to pain to prove you felt it. You don't have to cling to an old dream to honor your effort. And you don't have to carry the opinions of others to prove your worth. The moment you learn to let go is the moment you remember who you really are, unshaken, untethered, unafraid. 5. Practice mindfulness. In a world constantly screaming for our attention, mindfulness feels like a quiet rebellion. While everything around you urges you to move faster, do more, respond quicker, Stoicism whispers something different. Be here, fully, now, not lost in the past, not anxious about the future, but rooted in the one moment that truly belongs to you. This one. Mindfulness is not about sitting cross-legged on a mountain or escaping life. It's about entering it completely. With open eyes, a still breath, and an aware heart. The Stoics were not monks in caves. They were emperors, slaves, teachers, soldiers, people living in the chaos of daily life. Yet they believed that clarity, calm, and strength were available not through control, but through awareness. Marcus Aurelius said, "Confine yourself to the present." That one instruction could change your life. Because most of our stress isn't caused by the moment itself. It's caused by our wandering minds. We replay old arguments, rehearse disasters that haven't happened, judge our every thought, and lose ourselves in a storm of noise. Mindfulness is how we come back, how we remember that we are not the storm, we are the sky that holds it. To practice mindfulness is to take your attention off autopilot. It's choosing to live with intention instead of reaction. Whether you're eating, walking, working, or even listening to someone speak, mindfulness asks you to be fully there. Not multitasking, not drifting, but engaged. This doesn't mean forcing yourself to feel calm. It means noticing what's here, right now, without judgment. If your mind is anxious, you notice. If you feel joy, you notice. If thoughts race, you watch them pass like cars on a highway. You don't chase them. You don't fight them. You just see, and in that seeing, you reclaim your power. There's something deeply transformative about becoming the observer of your mind. For the first time, you realize that you are not your thoughts. You are the space in which they arise. You are not your emotions. You are the stillness that feels them. Epictetus taught, it is not things that disturb us, but our interpretation of things. And mindfulness is the tool that reveals those interpretations, so you can change them. Or let them go. Think about how often you react without thinking. Someone cuts you off in traffic, you explode. A message triggers you, you spiral. A single word from someone you love sends you down a mental rabbit hole of insecurity. But with mindfulness, that reaction time slows. A space opens up. You feel the emotion rise. And instead of becoming it, you breathe, you watch, and then, you respond. From clarity, from values, from inner strength. That space between trigger and response? That's where wisdom lives. That's where your life begins to change. Mindfulness also helps us reduce the background noise that so often robs us of peace. We constantly chase the next thing, the next task, the next goal, the next notification, until our minds are stretched so thin that we forget what it feels like to be still. But stillness isn't empty. It's full of information. It shows you what matters, what's weighing you down, and where your attention is truly needed. When you stop running and simply observe, the noise fades, the path clears. You remember that being is just as important as doing. And in this still presence, something else emerges, gratitude. You begin to notice the things you used to overlook. The way sunlight filters through the window. The warmth of your coffee cup in your hand. The breath that keeps you alive. These are not small things, they are life itself. The Stoics believed that happiness was not found in external excess, but in inner alignment. Epicurus said, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." And mindfulness brings you face to face with all that you already have. There is also power in the consistency of mindfulness. It's not a one-time act. It's a daily discipline. Like physical training strengthens the body, mindfulness trains your mind. It builds resilience, emotional intelligence, clarity. You start noticing patterns, how you speak to yourself, how you react to others, how certain environments or thoughts affect your energy. This self-awareness doesn't just change your mood, it changes your decisions, your relationships, your trajectory. You begin to live on purpose, not by accident. And even when life gets hard, especially when it gets hard, mindfulness becomes your anchor. When emotions flood your chest or chaos pulls you under, you don't have to fix everything instantly. You just have to notice. Take one breath, then another, and in that pause, you create space, a space that says, "I'm still here. I can handle this. I am not my panic. I am not this moment's pressure. I am the one observing, breathing, choosing." And that knowing, that quiet, grounded awareness, is more powerful than any quick fix or escape. It's important to understand, mindfulness doesn't mean you won't feel pain. It means you won't multiply it with resistance. It doesn't mean your life becomes perfect. It means your relationship to life transforms. You stop needing to control everything, and start showing up for everything, with more softness, more strength, more truth. So how do you begin? You don't need rituals, just attention. Start small. When you wake up, feel your feet touch the ground. when you eat, taste the food, when you talk to someone. Really listen. When your mind wanders, gently bring it back, not because you're failing, but because you're practicing. And each time you return to now, you get stronger, you get clearer, you become more fully yourself. This is what the Stoics understood. Your greatest power is presence. Not control, not certainty, but the courage to meet life as it is, moment by moment, to live wide awake, even in a world that numbs, to breathe fully, even when it hurts, and to keep showing up, not to chase perfection, but to honor the reality in front of you. That is the heart of mindfulness. And once you make it your practice, you'll never live distracted again. 6. Use silence effectively. In a world addicted to noise, silence has become rare, almost suspicious. We're surrounded by constant notifications, chatter, debates, and commentary. Everyone has something to say, but few stop to listen. Even fewer pause long enough to think before speaking. And that's exactly why silence, when used with intention, becomes a kind of superpower. Not the silence of passivity, but the silence of presence, of awareness, of mastery. The Stoics saw silence not as emptiness, but as space to reflect, to process, and to respond with wisdom instead of impulse. In silence, we don't disappear, we begin to truly show up. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You always own the option of having no opinion." What he meant was simple. You are not obligated to react. You are not required to fill every pause with words. You are allowed to take a breath, to observe, to say nothing until something truly meaningful arises. This is the strength of silence. It protects your energy, preserves your clarity, and makes your words matter more when you finally choose to speak. In a noisy room, the quietest person often holds the most power. Not because they dominate, but because they don't compete. They listen, they watch, and when they speak, people lean in. Using silence effectively starts with embracing it internally. We often speak out of discomfort, trying to fill awkwardness or silence just to feel safe. But growth lives in those quiet spaces. When we sit with our thoughts instead of escaping them, when we breathe through our emotions instead of reacting to them, we begin to develop an inner stillness that nothing outside of us can disturb. Silence becomes our anchor. It becomes the room where self-awareness grows. Because you can't hear yourself think if your mouth never stops moving. Think about the last time you reacted too quickly. Maybe it was during an argument, a stressful situation, or a moment of misunderstanding. You said something sharp, defensive, or unfiltered, and as the words left your mouth, regret came rushing in. We've all been there. But what if, in that exact moment, you paused? What if you allowed silence to come between the trigger and your reaction? That gap, that breath, that beat of stillness, it changes everything. It gives you the space to respond from wisdom instead of ego, from composure instead of chaos. Seneca once said, "Speech is silver, but silence is golden." That's not just poetic, it's strategic. Speaking less doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're in control. It means you've mastered the art of restraint. In relationships, silence allows room for others to be heard. It teaches you the difference between listening to reply and listening to understand. And when people feel truly heard, trust begins to form, respect deepens, connection becomes possible. That's the quiet gift silence gives, not attention, but presence. But silence is not just external. It's also the internal decision not to argue with everything you can't control. Not every insult requires a defense. Not every misunderstanding needs a correction. Not every comment deserves your energy. Silence, at its highest form, becomes an act of emotional intelligence. It's the ability to walk away without burning bridges, to observe chaos without becoming part of it, to let others be loud, while you remain grounded. There's a unique elegance in saying less but meaning more. When your words are intentional, people listen more carefully. When you're not constantly trying to prove your point becomes stronger. The Stoics believed that real influence doesn't come from volume, it comes from virtue. When you speak from calm, from depth, from truth, your presence carries more weight than noise ever could. Even in leadership, the power of silence cannot be underestimated. Great leaders don't just know when to speak, they know when not to. They understand that silence can command a room, shift a tone, or diffuse tension. It shows confidence. It shows thoughtfulness. It shows that you are not reacting, you are reflecting. And reflection is where wisdom begins. Let's not confuse silence with suppression. Stoicism never asked us to bottle up our truth. It asks us to refine it, to channel it, to wait until we're speaking from the best in us, not the worst in us. To use our voice with precision, not impulse. Sometimes silence is the most honest answer. Sometimes silence is the most powerful message. In moments of uncertainty, silence allows clarity to emerge. In moments of anger, silence becomes protection. In moments of temptation, silence is self-respect. Every time you choose not to react, not to explain, not to justify, you're reclaiming your energy. You're saying, I am not controlled by this moment. I'm not a prisoner of emotion. I'm rooted. I'm aware, I'm in command, and in that space, you grow. You gain respect without demanding it. You gain influence without shouting. You gain peace without surrender. Because silence doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing the most powerful thing of all: observing, choosing, and acting with intention. Using silence effectively is not about speaking less. It's about living more consciously. It's about creating room in your life for thought, for truth, for connection. It's about choosing substance over noise, timing over impulse, and stillness over chaos. The Stoics knew that the loudest thing about you shouldn't be your voice, it should be your presence. And that presence is built in silence. 7. Enjoy the journey, not just the outcome. We've been conditioned to chase success, chase recognition, chase the finish line. We're taught that happiness lives in achievement, that it's waiting somewhere in the future, locked behind a list of goals and accomplishments. But Stoicism turns that belief upside down. It reminds us that the destination is not where life happens. Life is in the steps, in the effort, in the process. When we obsess over outcomes, we miss the richness of the present moment. We miss the lessons, the growth, and the beauty that only the journey can give. Epictetus said, "Do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens happen the way it happens, and you will be happy." That's not about surrendering your dreams. It's about detaching your joy from how they turn out. Because when you link your worth to a result, you make your peace conditional. And peace should never be conditional. When your happiness depends solely on achieving something, you're living in a constant state of postponement. You delay joy until some imagined future. And even when you get there, the goalpost moves again. It's a race that never ends. But when you focus on the journey, on showing up, learning, growing, trying, you shift everything. You realize that fulfillment is not a finish line. It's built in the small victories, in the silent effort no one sees, in the discipline it takes to keep going, especially when no rewards are in sight. Think about an artist. A true artist doesn't paint only to sell the final piece. The act of painting is the reward. The quiet hours, the brush strokes, the trial and error. This is where the soul lives. This is the journey. And yet, many people give up not because they fail, but because the outcome didn't arrive fast enough. We rush, we compare, we pressure ourselves to prove something. But the Stoics would ask, prove what? And to whom? What if your effort was enough? What if your value didn't rise and fall with every win or loss? What if you're already becoming the person you're meant to be, not by arriving, but by continuing? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." If your mind is always fixed on what's next, you rob yourself of what's now. But when you bring your attention back to the step in front of you, life becomes more vibrant. You start to notice how far you've come. You find meaning in the struggle. You laugh more. You stress less. You're no longer rushing to live, you're actually living. This mindset also transforms how we view failure. When you're focused only on the result, failure feels like a dead end. But when you honor the journey, failure becomes a teacher, a redirection, a part of the path. Every mistake, every setback, every detour carries within it a lesson that sharpens your character. The Stoics didn't fear failure, they used it. Seneca said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." And it's during the hardest parts of the journey that you grow the most. Not when everything is smooth, but when it's messy, uncertain, and real. Enjoying the journey also means releasing the need for perfection. When you accept that life unfolds in unpredictable ways, you stop demanding flawless execution from yourself or others. You become more patient, more compassionate. You realize that being a work in progress is not a flaw, it's the human experience. You stop racing to become and start appreciating who you already are. Even as you continue to evolve, think about someone training for a marathon. If their only joy comes from crossing the finish line, they miss the months of resilience, the discipline of early mornings, the pride in showing up when it's hard. But if they fall in love with the training itself, then every step is a win. Every mile becomes a meditation. Every drop of sweat is a celebration. The journey becomes the reward, and in that mindset, success takes care of itself. This philosophy applies to everything: your career, your relationships, your passions. If you're building something only for the applause, you'll burn out. But if you're building it because you believe in it, because it makes you come alive, because you're learning through the process, then even the quiet days hold meaning. Then the effort becomes sacred. Stoicism invites us to redefine success. It's not the trophy on the shelf or the title on the door. It's the kind of person you become in pursuit of your goals. It's how you handle the delays, the rejections, the long stretches of uncertainty. It's your ability to keep walking with integrity, even when no one is watching. And when you live this way, every day becomes valuable, not just the ones where you win. Enjoying the journey doesn't mean lowering your ambition. It means deepening your awareness. It means waking up to the fact that this step, this conversation, this choice, this challenge, is not a distraction from life. It is life. And when you give your best to this moment, you're already succeeding. So pause. Breathe. Look around. Don't wait until you've arrived somewhere to feel proud, grateful, or alive. Feel it now. Celebrate now. You're not behind. You're not late. You're in the middle of becoming. And there's nothing more beautiful than that. This is how the Stoics lived. With purpose. With presence. With the understanding that life is not a race to be won, but a path to be walked. And when you learn to love the walk, even when it's uphill, you've already won. 8. Find joy in the simplest things. We live in a world that keeps telling us happiness is out there, hidden inside a luxury car, buried in the corner office, waiting behind the glow of a new phone or the next big purchase. We're constantly being sold the illusion that joy is something we must chase, earn, or upgrade into. But Stoicism reminds us of something far more profound and far more liberating. Real joy isn't found in more, it's found in less. In what we already have. In the simplest, quietest moments that we so often overlook. Joy is not somewhere out there. It's right here, waiting for you to notice. Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more. That is poor." And those words cut deeper now than ever. Because we've become obsessed with comparison, with accumulation, with more. And yet, the people who seem the most fulfilled are not the ones who have everything. They're the ones who find magic in almost nothing. They sit with a warm cup of tea and feel peace. They take a slow walk at sunset and feel awe. They hear a child laugh or the leaves rustle and feel connected to something greater. These moments aren't grand, but they're real, and in their quietness lies something eternal. Joy doesn't ask for attention. It whispers. It waits in the background. But most of us are too busy, too distracted, or too focused on what's missing to hear it. We scroll. We rush. We expect. We tell ourselves we'll be happy when the debt is paid off, when the dream job lands, when someone finally understands us. But Stoicism teaches the opposite. Joy is not in arrival, it's in awareness. It's in the here and now. And when we learn to truly see what's in front of us, we realize we're already rich. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself." That quote isn't just ancient wisdom, it's a roadmap home. It reminds us that simplicity is not scarcity. It's clarity. The more we strip away the noise, the more space we make for presence. And presence is where joy lives. Not in having more, but in needing less. Not in chasing the extraordinary, but in honoring the ordinary. Think about how peaceful life becomes when you stop trying to impress anyone. When you stop needing external validation to feel good about yourself. When you start waking up and noticing the things that don't cost anything, the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the smell of rain on dry pavement, the first bite of your favorite meal, the sound of someone you love saying your name. These aren't just background moments. They're life itself, and they're happening all around you. Every single day. The Stoics believed that a good life isn't found in extravagance, but in moderation, in gratitude, in simplicity. Epicurus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." That's not about deprivation, it's about liberation. Imagine the freedom of not needing more to feel enough. Imagine not constantly reaching, proving, consuming. Imagine being full, because your heart, not your shelves, is overflowing. This mindset isn't just calming, It's empowering, because once you realize that happiness is already available to you, you stop waiting, you stop depending on perfect conditions, you stop living with someday in your vocabulary. You start appreciating the life that's already yours. You start giving thanks for what's right, even when everything isn't perfect. You become more resilient, because joy no longer hinges on success or stability. It's rooted in your perception, your attitude, your focus. Finding joy in the simplest things is also an act of rebellion against a world that tries to keep us discontent. It's saying no to the pressure of more, and yes to the quiet truth of enough. It's slowing down when everyone else is speeding up. It's choosing depth over distraction, meaning over noise, stillness over stimulation. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. That's freedom. Gratitude is the gateway. When you pause and actually reflect on what you're grateful for, even the smallest details, you start seeing life differently. You start living differently. Your morning routine becomes a sacred ritual. Your walk to work becomes a meditation. Your conversations become deeper. Even your silence becomes nourishing. Why? Because you're finally present. And presence, not possessions, is the secret to joy. Even during hard times, especially during hard times, this lesson matters most. When life gets messy, uncertain, or painful, it's easy to spiral into scarcity, to focus only on what's going wrong. But the Stoics knew that even in suffering, there's room for stillness. Even in chaos, there's space for beauty. It might be a single breath, a kind gesture, a memory that brings peace. It's not about pretending everything is okay. It's about noticing what is okay, even when much isn't. That shift can save you. When you learn to find joy in simple things, you also become a source of peace for others. Your presence becomes grounding. Your calm becomes contagious. You no longer add to the noise. You become the silence people crave. The reminder that maybe, just maybe, they don't need more either. They just need to notice what they've been missing. And in that noticing, everything changes. So take a moment, look around. What's one thing right now that brings you quiet joy? A breeze, a smile, a memory, a moment. Honor it. Let it be enough. Because that's where real happiness lives. Not in the next big thing, but in this small, sacred breath. This is what the Stoics understood. When you stop chasing what's loud and start embracing what's simple, life becomes fuller, not emptier, softer, not weaker, richer, not heavier. And in that simplicity, you don't just find peace, you remember who you were before the world convinced you otherwise. 9. The art of gratitude. There is a quiet transformation that happens when you shift your focus from what's missing to what's already present. Gratitude is not just a feel-good emotion, it's a way of seeing the world. A daily decision to recognize abundance instead of lack. In the eyes of the Stoics, gratitude is more than a virtue. It's a foundation, a compass, a reminder that no matter how chaotic life becomes, there is always something to honor, something to appreciate, something to hold on to with open eyes and a steady heart. When you truly understand the art of gratitude, you no longer chase happiness, you awaken to it. Seneca once said, "Nothing is more honorable than a grateful heart." And that one line contains more wisdom than 1,000 self-help books. Because when you are grateful, you stop operating from fear. You stop feeding the inner narrative that says you're always behind, always lacking, always waiting for something better. Gratitude is the great reframing. It doesn't change your reality, but it changes your relationship to it. And in that shift, you discover that life has already given you more than you were noticing. The beauty of gratitude is that it doesn't depend on perfect conditions. It can exist in the middle of uncertainty. It can survive disappointment. It can thrive even in the smallest, quietest moments. You can be going through heartbreak and still feel thankful for the lesson it brought. You can be struggling with work and still appreciate the roof over your head. You can be tired of the noise, yet still find peace in a few seconds of silence. Gratitude doesn't ask you to deny your pain. It asks you to remember that pain and blessings often live side by side. The Stoics understood that the mind, left unchecked, drifts toward dissatisfaction. It focuses on the gap between where you are and where you think you should be. But gratitude closes that gap. It brings you back to the present. It reminds you that this moment, even if imperfect, is still a gift. Epictetus advised his students to start and end each day with reflection on what they were grateful for. Not because life was easy, but because gratitude made life lighter, even in its heaviest seasons. Gratitude also transforms relationships. When you learn to appreciate people instead of expecting them to meet every unspoken need, everything changes. You begin to see their kindness, not their flaws. You speak more gently. You listen more openly. You give without keeping score. And suddenly, those around you feel it. Gratitude, when practiced genuinely, creates connection. It deepens trust. It turns moments into memories. And it teaches you to love people as they are, not as you wish they would be. Even your relationship with yourself softens when gratitude becomes your lens. Instead of criticizing every mistake, you begin to thank yourself for your resilience. Instead of focusing on what you haven't accomplished, you acknowledge the strength it took to keep going. Gratitude doesn't just uplift you, it rebuilds you. It becomes the language of self-compassion, the antidote to shame, the bridge between who you are and who you're becoming. One of the most powerful tools in cultivating this mindset is the gratitude journal. It sounds simple, and it is, but its impact is profound. Taking just a few minutes each day to write down 3 things you're thankful for can rewire your brain. You start scanning your day for good instead of bad. You begin to notice small joys you used to ignore, a kind word, a quiet morning, the way your body keeps showing up for you despite everything. And over time, these small recognitions build a life that feels more full, even if nothing external has changed. Gratitude also helps us navigate hardship. When things fall apart, the natural reaction is panic, despair, frustration. But if you've trained your mind to see the good even in small doses, you'll find strength others overlook. You'll see opportunity in the challenge. You'll notice growth in the discomfort. You'll realize that you're not empty, you're being reshaped. And that mindset doesn't just help you survive hard times. It helps you rise from them wiser, calmer, more anchored in truth. Even in moments of success, gratitude keeps you grounded. It reminds you not to take credit for everything. It keeps you humble. It helps you stay connected to those who supported you. It protects you from arrogance and entitlement. And it reminds you that achievements, like everything else in life, are fleeting. What lasts is how deeply you appreciated the journey. What stays with you is how much heart you brought into every step. Gratitude is also contagious. When you live with a grateful spirit, people feel safer around you. They feel seen. They feel valued. You become the kind of person who doesn't just talk about light, you reflect it. In a world that's constantly focusing on what's wrong, your gratitude becomes a form of healing, a silent rebellion, a quiet revolution that starts within and ripples outward. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking gratitude is something passive. But it's not. It's a discipline, a habit, a practice that takes effort, especially when life is hard. But the effort is always worth it. Because every time you choose gratitude over complaint, you strengthen your spirit, you sharpen your focus, you create space for joy to return. Gratitude doesn't make life perfect, but it makes life livable, lovable, worth slowing down for. It shifts the story from, I'll be happy when, to, I'm thankful now. And that shift, though small, can change everything. So take a moment, not later, right now. What are 3 things, no matter how small, you're grateful for? Don't overthink it, just feel it, write it down, carry it with you. Because in a world that tries to keep you chasing, gratitude is how you finally arrive. 10. Appreciate solitude. In a world constantly shouting, pushing, rushing, solitude has become one of the most underrated treasures of modern life. But the Stoics knew differently. They didn't fear solitude, they sought it. They embraced it, they honored it, because in solitude, there is a sacred kind of clarity, a rare kind of peace, and most importantly, a return to the one voice that matters most, your own. Appreciating solitude isn't about isolation. It's not about being cut off from the world. It's about creating a space, a sanctuary, where you can finally listen to yourself without interference, without noise, without performance. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful emperors in history, would retreat into his own thoughts in the middle of war, politics, and pressure. In his journal, he wrote not for others but for himself, to sort his mind, to purify his thinking, to reconnect with his principles. That is solitude. It's the ability to be alone without feeling empty, to stand in silence and feel strengthened, not diminished. And in that silence, you don't escape life, you begin to understand it. Solitude reveals truth. When you remove the distractions, the endless chatter, the opinions of others, you start to hear something far more valuable, your inner compass, your true desires, your hidden fears, the values that make you who you are. These are things you can't discover when you're constantly surrounded by noise. Solitude creates the space for self-awareness. And self-awareness is the birthplace of wisdom. Too many people confuse solitude with loneliness. But they are not the same. Loneliness is a craving for connection. Solitude is a deep connection with yourself. One comes from lack, the other from wholeness. When you learn to appreciate solitude, you stop fearing silence. You start seeking it. You stop running from yourself. You begin sitting with your thoughts, your questions, your contradictions, and instead of judging them, you explore them. That is how you grow. In solitude, decisions become clearer. Emotions lose their grip. You're no longer reactive. You're responsive, because you've had time to process, to reflect, to ask yourself, not what do others expect of me, but what do I want? What feels right? What aligns with my character? The Stoics believed that the key to virtue wasn't found in loud declarations, but in quiet integrity. And solitude is where that integrity is shaped. Modern life rarely allows for this kind of pause. We're constantly stimulated, endlessly plugged in, always expected to reply. react, perform, but true strength is forged in the unseen moments. When no one is watching, when you choose depth over distraction, when you sit with your discomfort instead of numbing it, when you breathe through your restlessness instead of escaping it. That is the power of solitude, not as a punishment, but as a practice. Imagine waking up early, before the world intrudes, sitting in silence with a cup of coffee or tea. No notifications, no conversations, just you, breathing, thinking, observing. That moment is not empty, it's sacred. It's in those moments that you recalibrate, that you remember what matters, that you listen to your intuition, not the algorithm, and in doing so, you reconnect with a kind of peace that no achievement, no applause, no external approval can give. The Stoics also taught that solitude is essential for emotional mastery. When you step back from the noise, you realize how much of your stress, anxiety, and anger were never truly yours. They were reactions to the chaos around you. Solitude strips away the noise. It shows you what emotions are lingering, and more importantly, why. It teaches you how to witness your thoughts without becoming your thoughts. It helps you build the muscle of detachment, not from life, but from overreaction. In solitude, creativity returns, perspective widens. You begin to solve problems more effectively, not because you're trying harder, but because you're finally thinking clearly. Your mental bandwidth expands, your focus sharpens, and you start showing up to life, not scattered and exhausted, but intentional and whole. This kind of presence is powerful. It's rare, and it's impossible to access without first being alone with yourself. Even relationships benefit from solitude. When you spend time with yourself, you bring a more grounded, authentic version of you into every interaction. You stop projecting your insecurities onto others. You stop depending on people to fill the silence you fear. Instead, you begin to listen more. You speak with more care. You love without possession, because you've already built that foundation within. And perhaps most beautifully, solitude reconnects you with nature, with stillness, with the realization that you are a small part of something much larger. Go for a walk without your phone. Sit by a window and watch the clouds. Lie under the stars and say nothing. These acts may seem small, but they are profoundly healing. They remind you that life isn't always about motion. Sometimes, it's about presence. To appreciate solitude is to reclaim your mind, your time, your energy. It's a return to self-respect. It's saying, I am enough, even without constant input. It's choosing depth over distraction, meaning over momentum, and in a culture obsessed with noise, choosing solitude becomes an act of courage. The world will always pull at you, demand your attention, but you are not obligated to give it away freely. You can choose to pause, to retreat, to listen inward, and when you do, you'll find that solitude is not a void, but a mirror. A mirror that shows you who you truly are. Beneath the roles, beneath the noise, beneath the expectations. That reflection, clear, honest, undistorted, is what the Stoics were always searching for. And it's waiting for you. In silence. 11. Detach from the opinions of others. There's a quiet prison that too many of us live in, a mental cage built not of steel, but of whispers, the expectations of others, the silent pressure to be liked, to be praised, to be understood. But the truth is, the more you chase validation, the more you lose yourself. One of the most liberating lessons in Stoic philosophy is this: what others think of you is not your business. It's not within your control, and therefore, it's not worth your peace. Imagine living your entire life as a performance, constantly adjusting your behavior to fit what others might approve of. You wear different masks for different people, trying to keep up an image, afraid of judgment, addicted to approval, and then, at some point, you stop and realize you've been living everyone else's life but your own. That's not strength, that's slavery. Marcus Aurelius saw through this trap when he wrote, "We are not disturbed by events, but by the views which we take of them. And often, the views that weigh us down are not even our own, they belong to others." To detach from the opinions of others is not to become cold or indifferent. It's to protect your inner clarity. It's to understand that people will project their fears, their biases, their insecurities onto you, and none of that defines who you are. Opinions change, gossip fades, applause turns into silence, but your values, your truth, your path, that's what remains. And it's your responsibility to live in alignment with that, not with someone else's fleeting perspective. The Stoics taught that we should focus only on what's within our control, our thoughts, our choices, our actions. What others think, say, or assume, those are not your responsibilities. Let them talk, let them speculate. Your worth is not a group decision. You were not born to win a popularity contest. You were born to live with purpose. And sometimes, purpose looks like going against the crowd, standing alone in your beliefs, and doing what's right even when it's unpopular. When you no longer rely on praise to feel good about yourself, you become free, truly free, because you're no longer performing. You're no longer contorting yourself into a version that's digestible to others. You start living honestly. You start making decisions based on your own compass, not because you're trying to prove something, but because it's the right thing for your soul. And that kind of freedom, that kind of peace, is something no amount of applause can buy. But detaching from others' opinions doesn't mean ignoring feedback or becoming arrogant. It means knowing the difference between constructive insight and empty noise. It means listening with discernment, not dependency. It means understanding that your growth isn't contingent on everyone liking you. In fact, if you're growing, evolving, stepping into your truth, some people will resist that. Some will criticize. That's not a reflection of your failure. It's a reflection of their fear. Ask yourself, how many times have you made a decision based on how others would perceive you, rather than what truly felt right? How often have you silenced your instincts to avoid conflict or rejection? And what has that cost you? Your energy? Your joy? Your authenticity? It's time to take it back. To stop living for approval and start living with intention. There is a quiet power in not needing to explain yourself, in walking away without proving your point, in smiling through the criticism because you know it's not about you. The Stoic mindset reminds you that your reaction is your power. You don't need to defend every choice, argue every perspective, or correct every misunderstanding. Let your life speak. Let your consistency speak. Let your peace speak. The people who matter will see it. The ones who don't were never meant to. When you anchor your self-worth in public opinion, you become unstable, tossed around by every comment, every glance, every post. But when your worth is rooted in principles, in character, in the quiet knowing of your heart, you become unshakable. You become someone who can walk into any room, not needing to be liked, but simply choosing to be honest. And honesty is magnetic. It draws the right people and repels the wrong ones. You don't need permission to live your truth. You don't need consensus to feel valid. Your journey is not a democracy. It's a sacred contract between your soul and your actions. Break free from the mental chains of, "What will they think?" and replace it with a new mantra. "What do I stand for?" That question changes everything. Let go of the idea that being misunderstood is a failure. Sometimes, being misunderstood is proof that you're finally being authentic. That you're no longer watering yourself down. That you're no longer molding yourself into a shape that fits into everyone's box. Great minds, free spirits, bold thinkers, they've all been criticized. And yet, they kept going, because truth doesn't need approval. It just needs courage. So live in a way that's rooted in self-respect. Make peace with not being everyone's favorite. Learn to thrive in your own skin. And remember, your time, your focus, your spirit, they're too valuable to waste on winning the approval of those who don't even know your heart. 12. Speak less, mean more. In a world obsessed with noise, the loudest voices often drown out the wisest ones. Social media thrives on oversharing. Conversations are flooded with empty chatter. And silence is misunderstood as weakness. But in truth, it's the ones who speak less, yet with precision, intention, and depth, who leave the greatest impression. The Stoics understood this well. They didn't just teach restraint in emotion but also in language. Because words, when used carelessly, create confusion, conflict, and chaos. But words, when chosen with awareness, can illuminate minds, mend hearts, and command respect without shouting. There is power in restraint, power in not reacting to every opinion, in not needing to prove yourself in every debate, in not filling every silence with words just to feel important. Those who are secure in themselves don't seek validation through volume. They speak only when there is truth to offer, value to add, or kindness to give. They understand that silence is not absence, it is presence. It is clarity. It is strength. And when they do speak, the room listens, because their words carry weight, carved not from impulse but from intention. To speak less is not to be passive, it is to be selective. It is a skill that requires mastery over emotion, discipline over the ego, and deep respect for the power of language. Anyone can talk, anyone can ramble, but few can articulate what matters in a way that resonates, heals, or uplifts. When you begin to train this skill, you start seeing conversations differently. You listen more than you respond. You pause before you react. You feel the energy behind someone's words instead of just the content. And then, when it's your turn to speak, you cut through the noise with clarity that demands attention. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." This wasn't just witty advice, it was a way of life. Because the one who listens deeply understands more, and the one who understands more speaks wisely. Let your speech be like rare gold, precious not because of quantity, but because of its weight and value. Say less, but mean more, and when your words are aligned with thought, timing, and heart, they will echo longer than 1,000 careless phrases ever could. Often, we feel compelled to speak out of discomfort. We fear silence. We fear that being quiet might be seen as weakness, indifference, or ignorance. But true strength is knowing that silence can be a shield, a teacher, and a statement. It can protect you from arguments that lead nowhere. It can give others space to feel seen. It can calm a storm before it begins. And sometimes, the wisest thing to say is nothing at all. This is not about being mysterious or withholding love. It's about mastering your message. It's about communicating with presence. It's about recognizing the difference between noise and necessity. You don't have to be the loudest person in the room to be the most powerful. You just have to be the one who speaks with purpose. And when you do, when your words are laced with intention, when your voice is rooted in self-awareness, you become unforgettable. Think about the people you admire. Chances are, they aren't the ones who talk the most. They're the ones who speak when it matters. The ones who say something and make you feel something. That's the impact of depth. That's the energy of someone who has thought before speaking, who speaks with inner calm instead of reactive emotion. That's what Stoicism invites us to cultivate, not just in moments of tension, but in daily life. Whether you're speaking to a friend, addressing a crowd, or simply thinking aloud, choose your words as if they have power, because they do. There's also a profound freedom in not having to explain yourself all the time. In letting your actions speak. In letting your presence do the talking. Sometimes, you don't owe anyone a response. Sometimes, your silence is your boundary. And that boundary doesn't need defending. It needs honoring. You don't have to clarify every misunderstanding. You don't have to win every debate. Speak when it adds peace, not just noise. In relationships, this principle can transform everything. Imagine a disagreement where, instead of rushing to defend, you breathe and listen. You respond, not to win, but to connect. You speak not from anger, but from empathy. That's how bridges are built. That's how trust is restored. Not with endless explanations, but with words that reflect care, humility, and emotional wisdom. Speaking less gives space for reflection. And in that space, better words are born. Let your words be few, but powerful. Let them reflect who you are, not who you're trying to impress. Let them heal, inspire, and guide, not because you're perfect, but because you're present. And when silence is the better teacher, let it speak on your behalf. There is beauty in brevity. There is strength in restraint. And there is deep respect earned by those who know when to hold their tongue and when to let their voice become a beacon of truth. Speaking less doesn't mean you matter less. It means you understand the true power of presence, precision, and poise. In a loud world, your quiet strength becomes magnetic. And in that silence, others begin to hear themselves, and maybe, just maybe, find a little more peace too. In a world that constantly pushes us to do more, want more, and be more, the greatest rebellion is to slow down and be enough. These 12 Stoic lessons aren't just ancient wisdom, they are lifelines in modern chaos. When you learn to live fully in the present, to embrace change instead of fearing it, to let go rather than control, you don't become passive. You become powerful in a quieter, more grounded way. You start to speak less, but with more purpose. You stop performing for the world and start honoring your truth. You begin to realize that solitude isn't loneliness, but freedom. That silence isn't absence, but depth. That peace isn't found in perfection, but in presence. And with each practice, whether it's gratitude, mindfulness, acceptance, or letting go, you move closer to a life that isn't forced, but flowing. You don't have to fix everything. You don't have to chase everyone's approval. You don't need the perfect plan. What you need is clarity, space, and courage to trust the calm voice within you. The one that already knows you're okay right here, right now. If this message resonates with you, if you're ready to live lighter, think deeper, and love more freely, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This channel is your reminder to pause, reflect, and return to what truly matters. Because the journey toward inner peace isn't loud. It's silent, but it changes everything.